Hello everybody, welcome back to the YS channel. Today I'm just going to sit back, discuss, and review the 1993 movie, The Sandlot. I feel like it's a fitting movie to review, given that we're in the middle of baseball season and, the 2020 Summer Olympics here in Paris, France. I mean, I forget if baseball's in the Olympics or not, but who gives a shit. Anyhow, let's just sit back and enjoy this discussion about this all-time, classic from the early 1990s. So as I already mentioned before, The Sandlot was released in 1993. In case you haven't seen it, this movie is a coming-of-age movie. The main character, his name is Smalls, and he moves to this new town. And he tries to make friends with the local neighborhood kids who play this ongoing, never-ending game of baseball in this sandy field, which is known as the Sandlot. And that's pretty much the backbone story of this movie. Anyhow, the other, main character in this movie who becomes kind of like he's the first one to become friends with the new kid. His name is Benedict Rodriguez, and he's considered the best player of the Sandlot kids, right? More about him later. But anyhow, The Sandlot, as I said, is a coming-of-age movie. Again, it focuses on Smalls, the Sandlot kids, and then discusses other, other situations like just growing up, dealing with adversity, obstacles, all that kinds of crazy stuff. Now, what is really great about this movie, right? Most of the characters are pretty memorable. I've already touched on Smalls. The other kid who was known as Squints, Benedict Rodriguez. All of them, man. Like the kid named Ham Porter. He's like the big redheaded kid who was the catcher. Most of these kids had, their impact on the movie is pretty, memorable, right? And then, as mentioned before, I think the Squints character has, the most infamous scene in the movie. More on that later. But anyhow, at the core, this movie, again, talks about the power of friendship, the importance of teamwork, and the magic of childhood. The baseball game is, the bonding mechanism for all the Sandlot kids, right? There's also the baseball field, or the Sandlot, whatever you want to call it, is where, they overcome the vast majority of the obstacles they're faced with. The biggest one is the big mean dog that's across the fence, known as the Beast. And again, more on that guy later. I personally, watching this movie, right? There's a scene, they're in the treehouse, they're talking about the backstory of the Beast. It's told primarily through Squints. The whole backstory is bogus, right? That's just what these kids think the backstory is. Nobody knows for sure, right? And they'll find out more, after the fact. But, every time this movie would come on, whether it was, on TV, or even in school, and we would all just watch the shit out of this thing, if the teacher played it, or get it on TV. I mean, I even remember many times, going, when Blockbuster was a thing, getting this movie. We would just watch it over and over and over, for us early 90s kids, I can't think of anybody, I knew growing up who hadn't watched this movie, multiple times and hated the movie. It's a great coming-of-age movie. It's... Again, at the beginning, the Smalls character, he's like the fish out of water. And then over time, he becomes more accepted by the Sandlot kids. And eventually, he becomes a full-fledged member of the Sandlot kids. And in fact, I think he comes up with a strategy, because in the movie, right, he's trying to gain their acceptance. And then they keep hitting baseballs across the fence. And of course, they're afraid to go across that fence because the Beast dog is going to tear them to pieces, right? So, in order to get closer to his friends, he steals his dad's autographed baseball, which was signed by Babe Ruth. Which if you've never followed actual MLB baseball lore, Babe Ruth was the greatest hitter of his era. In fact, there's only two people who have broken his records when it comes to like home runs. That's Hank Aaron and Barry Bonds. Whether or not you think Barry Bonds did it cleanly or not, it's irrelevant. Yes, unless the MLB changes the records, he's the all-time home run king. Anyhow, Babe Ruth, like, during his era, in the 30s and the 40s, you know, the guy was the shit as far as baseball goes. You know, his record, it took decades for his records to fall. So anyhow, you gotta imagine how important it is to have a baseball autograph by the guy, right? But against Smalls, you know, he's not very athletically gifted. You know, he's more like a nerd. You know, he doesn't understand the importance or the significance of what he's doing by grabbing an autographed baseball from Babe Ruth from his stepdad's trophy collection. So he presents the ball, they continue the game. The kids are like, I mean, way to go, Smalls, right? And then, you know, the ball gets hit out the fucking field, right? And then, you know, the dog gets it or whatever, disappears. They have to end the game. And then Smalls has a little panic attack. And he's like, oh man, my dad's gonna kill me. And they're like, why? It's just a stupid baseball. No, it was something about this gay named Babe. And then all the other kids, you know, the Sandlot guys knew who Babe Ruth is. And they're like, you, like, fucking lost an autographed baseball from Babe Ruth. And he's like, what's the big deal? And then, of course, they explained the big deal, right? So, after that moment, they have to devise a scheme to get the ball back. And then, of course, Smalls being like the nerd, he has like an erector set and some like RV thing. They build like a little robot thing. They like pretty much they get it over the fence, lower it down, and remote control it to scoop up the ball. And of course, the beast dog fucking stops it. And then, the Bane of the Jet Rodriguez character makes like a heroic like jump over the fence or whatever. And then eventually he kind of pretty much fails. Like then he starts running for his life with this dog, and it's like to me again for these like early 90s movies, which you have like a formula to them. I'll talk a little bit more about that later here. But you know, he has a funny ass chase scene. He's being chased through the town by the beast dog. And then eventually the chase comes full circle, ends up back in that yard where they encounter the homeowner and the master of the beast, who is no other than James Earl Jones. And then he plays a blind guy, you know, who's like, you know, he's pretty much very well into baseball. This guy has like autographed baseballs from you fucking like from that era, which I think that movie takes place in the 50s or 60s. Every big name baseball player of that time, he has autographed balls, he has stories, you know, from you name it, he has it. So anyhow, as it just turns out, he has multiple autographed baseballs from Babe Ruth. And at the end of the story, or near the end of the story, he agrees to exchange one of his autographed balls in exchange for the kids coming over to talk baseball with him. You know, of course, they happily agree to that. And then in the rest of the story, he talks about what happens to these kids as they grew up. The Bane of the Jet Rodriguez character going on to be like, you know, a Major League Baseball star, and the Smalls guy is a sports commentator who happens to commentate on baseball games, primarily of the Los Angeles Dodgers, which is where Bane of the Jet became a star player for in the movie. You know, the story has a great, you know, it's like a great A to B coming of age movie. And they find out that the beast isn't such a beast after all. It's just a big, giant teddy bear of a dog. It just looks fearsome because it's just huge. And then I'm going to circle back a little bit to the Squints character, right? One of the most infamous or famous scenes from the movie. Like, they go, again, this is dealing with the coming of age part here. They go to the swimming, like, the recreation area, the rec pool or whatever, you know, like the community pool, right? And he has the hots for, like, the lifeguard there, right? And, like, no matter what he does, he can't really get her attention. So, he comes up with this scheme where he fakes drowning for her to rescue him. So, And he pulls it off perfectly, right? Jumps in the pool, and she's got to rescue him, and she's trying to give him CPR mouth to mouth, and then she's attempting to do this a couple of times, and the Sandlot kids, right, don't know he's faking it at first. They think for real, like, bit off more than he could chew by jumping off into the deep end of the pool, kind of thing. And then, while she's giving him the mouth-to-mouth CPR, he kind of opens his eyes, gives him the wink, like, I'm okay. And then they realize what he's about to do. And then he sneaks a big fat kiss on her. Which, of course, gets them all kicked out of the fucking community center pool for life, I guess. However, if he grows up to marry the fucking lifeguard. Which, well played. Now, I say it's an infamous scene because, honestly, like, in the year 2024, you could not make a scene like that. Unless it's, like, telling of an actual autobiographical, event that really occurred. But, if they were to remake The Sandlot, they could not redo that same scene in the same way, unfortunately. Even though it's one of the best scenes of that movie. And there's another funny-ass scene where they go, like, a county fair or summer fair, right? And this part might not be remade today either. It features, a bunch of, like, 10, 12-year-olds, however old they are. I forget how old they are supposed to be. But obviously, they're elementary, early middle school age kids. They get a big-ass bag of, like, big league chewing tobacco. Which, that'd be a no-go today. But anyhow, you get this big-ass thing of chewing tobacco. And they go on, like, one of, like, the spinny fucking rides. And they all get fucking sick, and they start throwing up over each other. And these little stories, right? They get patched together to form the whole coming-of-age story. There's also a cool scene where they're playing baseball on the 4th of July. And, they're playing, like, at night. And you get the fireworks to, like, light up the game for them, which is always a cool scene. And then there's another scene where, like, they sort of have, like, a group of rivals who have, like, an organized real baseball, like, little league team. They challenge them to a game, and it has a kind of your cliche trash talk scene, which for a 90s kids movie was funny. I mean, the movie's very fucking rewatchable. Again, it's one of my favorites growing up. I'm trying to keep this short, but I really did run out of really good things to say about this movie. Its sequels, not so much. This is one of those movies I feel like one sequel is understandable, but the rest of the other shit, come on, just stop. It was just perfect as it was. And with that said, hopefully, like today's era, they could make another movie that hits the same as this movie did when I was growing up. I mean, remains to be seen, of course. But overall, great movie, fun movie. As far as I'm concerned, except for maybe some of the practical effects, it holds up pretty well to this day. It was never meant to be like a big budget, blockbuster type of movie. And that's one of those movies that it was a modest success when it was released. But again, over the home theater, VHS, DVD thing, it became like, it was really like earned its following. And with that all said, if you don't mind, drop a like, follow this channel. We really greatly appreciate it. Just enjoy talking about like cult movies, small movies, things of that nature, even some blockbusters. But, go ahead in the comment section, talk about whether you like this movie or not, or your favorite coming-of-age movie. I'd like to hear from y'all. Until the next time, later.